Seems like with nearly every single Bethesda Game Studios game, they managed to upgrade a ton of their mechanics and features. When we look back at Fallout 3, we know that the gun combat was nothing to write home about. Even back then in 2008 when the game released, it was still pretty bad. However, with Fallout 4, the weapon combat was massively improved. I'd argue Fallout 4 easily has the best combat of any Bethesda Game Studios game so far. And of course we're only mentioning Fallout here because that's the only BGS game with gun combat. But in Starfield, gun combat looks even more improved, so today we're going to break all of it down without wasting any time. Now the first thing of note here is this weapon known as the Cutter, which will be our starting and default weapon in Starfield. We all know that the Cutter is used for mining resources on planets and moons, but it can also be used as a last resort in combat. Now I do expect that it will do minimum damage at the very most, but there is a chance that we can upgrade it to mine faster, possibly have higher damage and even maybe a bigger ammo capacity. This seems to be a weapon that we'll have on us at all times, which is new for a Bethesda game. Now here we finally get our first good look at the overall combat in Starfield. We can see a member of the Spacers faction here known as a Spacer Punk, who had 1 bar of shield and 3 bars of regular health. Slowing this clip down, we can actually see our character combat sliding across the floor to get behind cover, and this is one of my personal new favourite features in Starfield. I felt that this was a feature that would have worked really well in Fallout 4 and was heavily missing from that game, so I'm really glad to see it be added in here. Now you'll also notice the enemy getting behind this wooden crate thing over here for cover. This isn't surprising since Bethesda NPCs usually try to find cover anyway. Moving on, we can see how we'll be able to use the planet or moon's gravity to our advantage in Starfield. We aren't rocket boosting here, but actually just regular jumping. This is going to be a massive help to us to find high ground and take the advantage over our enemies. It's unclear if enemies will also jump into the air like this. We strangely still haven't seen any enemy NPC do this yet. Now one kind of smaller thing that I do really want to note here is that our bullets seem to almost be locking onto enemies. I weirdly haven't seen anyone else mention this, but you can see here that clearly we're firing down, but our bullet is curving straight up. I'm wondering if this is just weirdly how it looks in this one particular shot, or if our shots will auto-lock onto all enemies. Maybe this is even a perk, who knows, but I wanted to point it out. Now once we start looking at our inventory, we can actually see a bunch of the different damage outputs that are going to be in Starfield. We have physical damage, energy damage and EM damage. Again, this is somewhat new for Starfield. Fallout does have this different kind of damage system. Bugs in Fallout 4, for example, are mostly weak to fire. However, it seems to be much more focused on for Starfield and a lot more in depth, which is great to see. Now we're going to have a lot of different gun types in Starfield, which we will get to a bit later on, but right now I want to point out this strange shotgun looking weapon, which seems to be firing some kind of purple and green, almost particle looking ammo. And this weapon completely wrecks the enemy in a single hit, which makes me think that, like past Bethesda games, Starfield will feature a sneak damage multiplier, meaning if we shoot someone who hasn't detected us yet, our weapon will actually do more damage than usual. And we all know at this point that our jetpacks will be a massive focus in Starfield, helping us reach higher ground and travel around planets faster than we usually would. Jetpacks are easily one of the things I'm mostly excited for when it comes to Starfield as a whole, and we can see in this very short clip again just how much the high ground can help us out in combat while these enemies are firing what seems to be multi-coloured changing lasers at us. Now again, in this very short clip, we can see that Starfield will have Neuro Strikes, aka an unarmed skill, which I know a lot of you are going to be very happy about, and I'm also very excited for this. In fact, I've already thought of an unarmed character build video that I'm going to do with this particular skill. If you're a VIP for my channel, then you'll already know what I'm talking about, but this looks insane, being able to punch enemies to death in a single hit and making them fly off into the air on planets with low gravity. Again, I'm so excited for this. Here we can see what appears to be thermal sights, meaning that we can see an enemy's heat signature through walls in order to help us track them basically. This is definitely a cool feature which I think will definitely be tied into a perk. Small thing here, I am glad that Bethesda added this. When Bethesda starts showing off a very small part of the new stealth system, there is something extremely important to note here, and that's the fact that pickpocketing will be happening in real time now. See, in previous Bethesda games, as I'm sure most of you know, If we wanted to pickpocket, we easily could just click on someone's inventory, aka hit the pickpocket button when we got close to them, and the game would just open up the NPC's inventory and sort of freeze time. But it looks like in Starfield we'll have to do this in real time, which will definitely make pickpocketing a whole lot more fun and exciting. But continuing on with stealth, a really cool feature that they showed off was of course the fact that we could travel through vents in the ceiling and walls, almost as if we're in a movie, and then drop down onto unexpected enemies to get a nice melee stealth kill. I'm very excited to do this with stealth builds. Now, with one of my favourite shots of the entire Starfield Direct, we can see us quote running and gunning. It's awesome to see that we could just sprint into enemy groups with this pump action shotgun thing and just start blasting away. You can also see some of the gore that will be in Starfield in this shot too, and it looks like Bethesda aren't holding back here. I love using pump action shotguns in video games. I don't know why, I just really do. So I'm gonna try and find this weapon basically as soon as I can. I'm sure you all remember the death from above part of the Starfield Direct because this looks really cool. This shot shows that we can actually just boost jump above enemies and just toss landmines at them, which looks extremely fun to do. Again, this will just be great for an explosives expert build that I'm planning to make a video on. Can you tell that I want my channel to focus on character builds when this game drops? But anyway, even if we move on, we get all of these great shots of us just blowing people to hell, and it's great to see that Starfield is going to have a lot of explosive options. Of course, we need to take a minute to talk about spaceship combat, which looks just as fun as ground combat. I'm very excited for this, as I am with everything else that I've mentioned. There's a bunch of this, so let me just break it down as simply as I can. Our ships are going to have 3 damage output modes and 3 defensive modes. For damage, we have laser weapons, ballistic weapons, and missiles, which you can see on the left here. On the right, for actual flight and defense, we have energy defense, shield defense, and our grav, which is likely our speed, and of course the grav jump. We can see that we're going to need to sort of flip between these 6 options mid-flight and put more power into what we want to use. Although I'm sure by the time we're like level 50 and deep into the game, we'll have ships powerful enough that we don't need to worry too much about this. We're also going to be able to use the environment to our advantage, which was one of my favourite things to see in the Direct Showcase because I love being able to use the environment around me in a game. We can see us shooting what's likely water tanks, and since we're on a super cold planet, the water just explodes into this like giant block of ice and damages the enemies around it. I know I keep saying this, but I'm so excited to do this. But that is pretty much everything that I wanted to go over and everything I could find of note. I'm very excited for Starfield's combat, and I pretty much just wanted to talk about it. I think it's going to be great fun, and there's still lots that I didn't even bother covering, like weapon torches, laser sights, and more, but let me know in the comments what type of weapon you're going to focus on in your first playthrough of Starfield, and if you enjoyed the video, I kindly ask that you leave it a like to help support myself and the channel as a whole. And look, if you want to stay frequently up to date on Starfield along with plenty of other open world RPGs, then this is absolutely the channel for you, so consider subscribing, I'd appreciate you. As always, a huge thank you to our channel members, you guys rock, so thank you for sticking around day after day, month after month, it really does mean the world. But with all of that said and done, thank you all so much for watching, and I really hope to see you next time. Peace.